I'm Peggy Kelly, and this is Good Morning Santa Paula. It's Thursday, September 17th, and I'm here today. We have a new guest. It's Carlos Juarez, who's a city councilman for the city of Santa Paula, and we're delighted to welcome Carlos today. It's bringing us some fresh perspective and a new voice to talk about what's going on with the city. So welcome, Carlos. So great to see you.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Bob, also for your technical help with us today.
Why, Carlos, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience? So everybody knows you. You've been here for quite a while and very active in the community in many levels. So why don't you tell our viewers, though, a little about yourself?
Well, thank you, Peggy. You know, I'm not a natural born Santa Paula. I came here when I was a year old, but I've been here 58 years, so that's nearly a lifetime. Hopefully a lot more to go, but you know, went through all the schools here in town and started working here at a young age and got hired when I was about 22 years old. That's Santa Paula Police Department, and I worked there for 27.5 years, retiring in 2011 as a lieutenant, and was happy-go-lucky being retired for a while, just getting involved and staying involved in community organizations like Rotary and the Theater Center and the Historical Society. And then after a couple of times of trying, my wife finally said, yeah, why don't you go and try for city council? So I ran, and I was one of three that were elected 2 years, so for 2 years. And I'll tell you, this has been a life-changing experience being on the council, especially from where I started. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I imagine being a police officer and working for the city, that also gives you a different perspective, perhaps.
It sure gives you a lot of historical insight of where we were and hopefully where we're going. And you know, a lot of people know me, and for the most part, I mean, I have no problem going anywhere in town because I've dealt with everybody in society, from people that have committed crimes to people that just needed help, and so I've had a great experience, and still always pretty much lived in town and can go anywhere in town, and never felt at all, you know, apprehensive about working and living in the same place.
Oh, sure, absolutely not. Yeah. Now, I know you had several council meetings yesterday, and the first one was actually a study session on the city's wastewater treatment plant and what the future of the operation of the treatment plant as it is right now. I would call it a water recycling plant, but we're not there yet. So, you know, why don't you update us on that? Number one, just to let the audience know, this plant was built in 2000. Its construction started in 2008, and it was privately owned, privately built, and the city purchased it several years back. So maybe 4 years, I'm not even sure. But anyway, so it is once again the city's responsibility. So update us.
Well, and paying for it's also in the future, and maintenance. And what we had last night at about 4:30 was a study session. And it was a study session on water recycling facility operation alternatives, because we're at the point where, do we continue going with the people that are servicing it this time? Do we switch to inside operations or privatize? So we had three items that we discussed. The first one was, again, continue outsourcing the water treatment facility operations.
Contract somebody to operate the plant. The city continues to own the plant, and just somebody comes in and operates it. Okay.
Yes, and currently it's Viola. They're the people that are currently operating and the facility. So that was one option, and there were some costs associated with that. Item number two was to look for and hire staff to perform all these functions, and also it'll be the responsibility of the city for operation and management functions. The third is to sell the assets to any private entity who would manage the wastewater treatment facility. There's pros and cons to all those, and I think what really came to the forefront is there's some cost savings doing one over another. But we really talked about, and I think one of the things that person said was ownership. And when you're in any kind of job or facility or organization, the more ownership you have in it, the more it means to you. And I kind of made the correlation, like when you're either in police or fire or hospital or city staff, and you know the people that you work with, you have more of a buy-in. And then if you live in town, you know, the things that happen around you mean more because you have vested interest in their outcome. So yeah, many times we've had people that come in and operate, and then they go home to wherever they live, and that's where kind of the problems have arisen when there's not somebody available. I made a comment last night where, if we have an earthquake, does somebody go down and check the plant? And they said, well, we'll only go down if the alarm starts sounding. Well, and then Councilmember Crosswhite said, well, how we ran into a problem last time is there was an issue. The alarms didn't sound, and then we had some issues. So
Yes.
staff, the council last night was leaning towards, and again, this is just a study session. So we were leaning towards directing our staff to go forth, see what the possibilities are of hiring our own staff. Now, the one thing that we were concerned about as well was, as has always been kind of with our city, is retention. We don't want to be a training facility. We don't want people coming here, getting a job, getting their experience, and then looking for a higher paying job. So in this proposal that Clete Saunier is going to put together is to make sure that we reach the industry standard for pay so that we attract people, but also retain them.
Right.
And so that's the direction that we're going to go to next month, is come back with, I think item number 2 is first and foremost with trying to see about operating the facility with city employees.
Oh, personally, I think that's a great one, because I agree with you. You're invested in it on a personal level, and I know it's less cost than having a contractor take care of it in the long run. So that's, well, I'm very interested in that, and thank you for updating us on that. Now, next up, I know that last night at the council meeting, which I was listening to on the city website, you were talking about Harding Park and the fact that Harding Park has an outstanding loan with the city, I believe. And just as an intro, be sure to tell people what Harding Park is, and we'll go from there.
Well, interesting enough, Jeanette Uregi came and made a public comment, and it's really interesting to hear the history that we lose when things aren't reduced to writing or aren't on a plaque somewhere. George Harding, back in, I think it was 1938, established the Harding Park Trust and, that facility, and wanted to make sure that it was a place for our youth to go. So there was outside properties that could get rent to help sustain the park. And so and they also had a Harding Park Trust Committee that ran for many years. And then, people move on, they pass away, and then pretty soon they lose sight. And the city took over part of those decision-making processes. And somewhere in there, something went awry. And I don't know if there was a good direction, but anyway, the money was coming in, but they fell into a deficit. And that's when the Harding Trust had to borrow, over $100,000. Paying it back. And so what they came was a recommendation that because there had been, some expenditures that maybe they couldn't account for, maybe weren't justified, and of course it serves our youth. They said, why don't you forgive the loan? So there was 3 options that the city staff came to us with, and one of them was forgiving the $42,000 loan and call it good. And then therefore any of the income that comes from the rental of the nearby properties that are part of the Harding Trust would then go towards, the coffers of the Harding Trust in the Harding Park. The second option, since there's, I think, 3 years left in the loan, they said, well, they can increase the loan to 10 years, thereby lowering the, the amount they pay. And also, but then as we know, the more you extend the loan, you pay interest, and you just hate having that debt over your head for 10 years now. And so the third option is to lower the loan by $20,000 or about half. And that way that cuts the amount of time that you pay, that they were going to pay it off in about half. Clint Garman is on the committee with the Harding Trust as an advisor, and he was leaning towards just forgiving because of the history and things he learned about the benefits to the community, and also some of the things that maybe didn't go as they should have. I was next, and I said, it's just interesting to hear about the history, and it's unfortunate that, we have the right to purge files, but when you lose those, you lose that tracking of how things worked and if they were done in the right way. So, and since our park at Limonera at Harvest is delayed, we need to do as much for our community as we can. And that's one of the places where a lot of folks and kids go to. So my suggestion again was to move forward with forgiving the trust. I mean, I'm forgiving the loan, but also I was okay with maybe if a majority of the council opted with option 3, which is lowering the debt by half. And I think it followed suit that the council members kind of listened, and Rick actually, always methodically thinking and logically thinking and legally thinking, we wanted to make sure there was no gift of public funds by forgiving the loan. But also he felt that by forgiving the loan, are you sending maybe the wrong message? So there's expenditures that the park and the foundation spends, and there was even a recent expenditure that maybe wasn't as justified as it should have been. So Rick Ariza, our mayor, says, well, why don't we, from this point on and go back and start to figure out what expenses they've had and what labor in-kind donations they're going to make when they fix the caretaker house, and kind of whittle away at the $42,000 loan. And if it reaches that threshold, maybe it'll be paid in full. So that's where the council went on that, is to go ahead and go with that option, and kind of the modified, which is let them forgive the loan incrementally if they can produce receipts along the way.
Okay, interesting. So it's almost, and that includes the actual physical work.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. Because don't forget, they get paid prevailing wages, so they get to credit the city. They get to credit prevailing wages. So
I think what's going to happen in that respect is, that Danny Reisman and several people are going to come in and actually do some of the work themselves.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they will. Yeah, you're right. They will probably be able to send an invoice and apply that towards the loan.
Well, it's so wonderful, because that's where all the Little League plays baseball, is Harding Park, and so it has been, and also they just reestablished the Harding Trust board again, and up until in between they were under the purview, as it were, of the Parks and Rec board, or the Recreation Advisory Board, or whatever it was. So it's gone back and forth a few times. So I'm interested in that. I'm going to talk to Jeanette myself and see what's going on. Speaking of kids in baseball, why don't we switch to kids in Halloween? Crazy times with COVID-19.
Well, every week we go to the elected officials conference call, and what's coming up faster than we know it is going to be Halloween. So the county, Dr. Levine, has put out some interim Halloween guidelines, and so I'll just kind of highlight some. So things not permitted are going to be Halloween gatherings, events, parties. Non-household members are not permitted if they are conducted outdoors. Carnivals, festivals, live entertainment, and haunted houses. So those things are, you just can't do them. It's too risky for the health of people.
Yeah.
But what's not recommended is door-to-door trick-or-treating. So they recommend no door-to-door trick-or-treating, or I've never heard of this, but trunk treating. Trunk treating, where children go from car to car instead of door to door. So they recommended not that as well, just because, again, you can't ensure the cleanliness of things, and there's going to be close contact. So it's kind of a sad thing, because Halloween, it's something for the kids to do and have fun, and you think that they're going to be wearing masks, but anyway, so the things that will be permitted are online parties, of course, online contests like costume or pumpkin carving, car parades. Car parades are events that, as long as they comply with public health guidance, and some of the guidances include, drive-by events where people that are outside of the vehicles can dress up, but people in the cars stay within the cars. Now, the drive-by events can give out treat bags, but it's limited, at least in the guidelines so far, it's limited to commercially packaged non-perishables. Let's see here. They also allow Halloween movie nights at drive-ins or in large locations, Halloween themed meals at outdoor restaurants, Halloween themed art installations at an outdoor museum, and dressing up homes and yards in Halloween themes. So one thing that Dr. Levin says is, if kids are going to wear masks, it's going to give you the false sense of security that you're protected. They can hear you. So he recommends, unfortunately, a costume with a mask to wear a cloth or, a protective health mask underneath, just for the person's protector as well as the public's protection. And that brings up a point, because some folks from Rotary just got a hold of Greg Barnes from the Recreation Department, and they are planning to host a drive-through Halloween event on Friday, October 30th.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
So it's going to be at Harding Park, because they got it down to a science with the food share down there. So they're going to practice social distancing. There'll be little vignettes with different service groups and families putting together little scenes. The people that are actors or actresses must wear masks and social distance unless they're from the same family. And the cars coming through will have children and families coming through. And either at the beginning or at the end, they're going to give a candy bag for each of the kids in the car. And Rotary is planning to give away sugar pumpkins, but again, based on the county's direction about, has to be non-perishable, we need to make sure that we can give out pumpkins. I mean, and I know that realize that there's going to be a pumpkin patch on the east side of town. So handling pumpkins in and of itself probably isn't bad as long as you maintain cleanliness and distancing.
Sure. Well, I know too that, you know, every year the city would always do such a wonderful job with their big Halloween carnival. And I think this is a wonderful alternative. And the drive-through, and you know, and I think parents, you know, kids so often take their signals from their parents. And I think if parents present these things to them about, wow, we're going to have so much fun this year, it's going to be different. We're gonna do it differently. We're gonna be in the car. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. You're gonna get plenty of candy, and just treat it like it's a fun thing, which it is. It can be the best time the kids ever have, but they have to be given that option and realize that, hey, this is what it is, you know. And they're a lot tougher than people give kids credit for, I think, you know. But I'm delighted that the city's stepping forward. You know, now I know one thing that's not a treat is the fact that Clint Garman resigned last night from the council. So would you like to talk about that, address that? I know that Clint, everybody's, I'm sure, aware that Clint did not seek re-election. So his term of office would have been over anyway in just December. But, you know, he had business problems due to COVID-19. And his family is moving back to Ventura, out of the area, and everybody just wishes them all the best, and everybody understands that these things do happen. We're living in such strange times now. But anyway, so, and he was very eloquent, and you know, everybody wishes him all the best. What's the council gonna do?
Well, there's several options. You know, we ran into this.
December 30th, excuse me. It's effective December 30th, isn't it? When his resignation takes effect?
The end of this month, yes.
Yeah, September.
So from there, we have 2 months before the election and the appointment or the seating of new council members, or a reseating of one who's running. So, you know, we ran into this 2 years ago when Councilmember Sobel was appointed. And then several months before that, they had to do that when they appointed Rick, appointed him. So there's Mr. Cotty, I understand, at our next meeting is going to come back with the options that we have. So first and foremost, obviously, is you could run for 2 months with 4 council members. You know, because there's only like there's going to be 4 meetings in fact before the seating of the next council starting next month. So I guess the council would have to look and see if there's major items that maybe should require 5 people in case there's a split vote, or, you know, a draw if there was only 2. So the option number 1 would be, if, you know, to just leave the 4 remaining council members for 2 months. As we just spoke, we could appoint a council member, and that process could be soliciting applications and interest from the community, and then holding interviews and then voting. But as you saw with Councilmember Sobel, the first vote was a 2-2 split, and then we came back and then there was some concessions made. Sure. So you could go through this process and end up with 1 council meeting before you know, the realignment in December. The third is, you know, they could always just seek somebody to appoint, somebody that may be qualified in the community, as long as everybody is agreeable to that. And the fourth is to have a special election. But I think it would be frowned upon to spend money for this short a time period.
And not only that, and I think you and I had discussed briefly earlier, since there's 4 people running, it's easy to say that they would apply. Of course, Andy can't because he's already seated on the council, but there's Leslie Cornejo and Caitlin Behringer and Margot Bangs. And one of the 3 could apply, but then if you appointed them, that would be like favoritism to the extent that people would see them up there as council members, I guess, unless it was after the election. But the bottom line is maybe once it is the election, maybe you could go ahead and just seat one of the winning candidates early. They could draw straws, whatever, and then just seat one of them early, if that's even legally feasible.
That's a question for Mr. Cotty, but yeah, you make an excellent point. And, you know, one thing that I've learned 2 years on the council, you make the decision that's not the popular one, but you make the right decision. And you're always going to get somebody that's going to disagree. So you can't please everybody, but you just got to make the best decision. And hopefully with the 4 remaining council meeting, we'll make the decision that's best for these
Yeah.
next 2 months.
Oh, absolutely. Well, no doubt whatsoever. Anything you'd like to add, Carlos? Anything on your mind or any
Well,
mess?
well, just the fact that, you know, this is my first time being a council member. I've sat through many councils and city managers, and I honestly got to say, this group of council people that are seated right now have worked really well together. We just get along really well. If we have disagreements, it's never personal, and we can leave and shake hands and talk to each other about anything the next day, because we know that we're going to have differences of opinion. And getting back again to Councilman Clint Garman, you know, I started off 11 years ago meeting him and then realizing that he became a friend, and he's been my friend ever since, and now he's my coworker. And last night I said, it's very sad to see him go, but I did mention to him that that, you know, he's going to go off to the things, and don't forget Santa Paula.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, Carlos, so nice having you today. Thank you so much for joining us and telling us all the stuff, as it were. You know, we really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Peggy Kelly. This is Good Morning Santa Paula. I'm with the Mighty Santa Paula Times. If you'd like to go ahead and watch this, you go to kadytv.com or .net, excuse me. Go to YouTube. If you go to YouTube, hit subscribe. Also, it's going to be on cable channel 10 for Spectrum viewers. I don't know exactly what the schedule is, but it'll also be there. So if you would like to see this, there's many options to do so. And once again, Carlos Juarez, City Councilman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Peggy, thank you. Bob, thank you very much.